In Utah, year over year, we've had challenges with different companies trying to do business in what we all like to think is a free market, conservative, pro-business state. We have Airbnb and people getting busted for sharing their homes. We have Uber and Lyft, people getting busted for sharing their cars and driving others around. Year over year, it seems like we're always having problems with food trucks, with Zenefits. Time and again, these companies will come online and then struggle.
Hey, we live in an exciting time of innovation and disruption, but sometimes our existing laws and regulations don't catch up with those new innovations. So the latest to be caught up in that snare is a company called Turo, and what they do is it's a peer-to-peer network that allow people to rent their vehicles to people who want to rent a vehicle.
Turo is being criminalized in Utah because of the airport. What's happening is that Salt Lake City has 2 ordinances on the books where they say it's actually illegal to do business at the airport without their permission, which of course they're not giving. And so because you go to the airport, you pick somebody up from the airport who's flying in from Utah, and you're going to share your car with them and let them use it for a few days, that is being criminalized. There are people being prosecuted in Utah for doing this.
The peer-to-peer network is a new industry, but we want to apply old laws, old rules to new things. I worked on Tesla legislation that for years Tesla could not sell a new vehicle in Utah because of antiquated laws regarding new car purchases. How do we approach these new industries? How do we make sure that people aren't harmed while we're waiting for laws and regulations to catch up?
When tourists come to Utah, we want to roll out the welcome mat, but when the first thing they experience at curbside at the airport is a police officer detaining them and the person they're renting the car from for an hour to write them up, give them a fine, and then send them on their way, that doesn't exactly have a very welcoming feel to it, right? We want to not have that happen, and yet it is happening. There are people being criminally prosecuted because of this in Salt Lake City.
That is not the brand Utah wants to have. We don't want that reputation around the country that you come to Utah, you're going to be questioned by cops.
The city wants to punish Turo and other companies like it because of protectionism. The airport benefits substantially from the fees that Enterprise and a lot of these big car rental companies are paying to the airport. And of course, that's not happening with companies like Turo who are just picking somebody up at curbside. Turo, the people using Turo, they're not using big parking lots, they don't have booths in the airport, they don't need space, and yet the airport wants its piece. They want the money. They say this is about safety, and yet all throughout the state, there are people using apps like Turo to share cars without any problems. They are insured, things are fine, so they say it's about safety. In reality, it's about revenue.
Right now in this legislative session, I'm working with colleagues to try to figure out how we move from an automatic default regulation to a system that stops and says, wait, are we trying to put square pegs in round holes? How do we do that? And we're racing to find that out, because in the meantime, you have individuals harmed, criminal penalties, and you have businesses that are stifled in this area of innovation.
Salt Lake City and the airport need to follow the free market. They need to allow Turo and its competitors to be able to pick people up at curbside and go off-site, deal with the transaction, change cars, and send them on their way. That shouldn't be illegal. That should not be a crime for this new type of business model in Utah. The law should not be protecting the business model of the airport and all of these fees that they collect from these car rental companies. We should have a free market. Salt Lake City's ordinances get in the way, and for that reason, the law needs to change to make sure that these people are not being criminalized.
Our Utah Constitution bases our economy on free market principles, and those are the principles that work. We want businesses to come here. We want new ideas to flourish. We want business to be successful. We want a welcome to Utah sign for families and for tourists and for businesses. So we really need to figure this out in a way that helps those innovations flourish.
For someone trying to make a buck and share a vehicle that they have, they should not be turned into a criminal. It's ridiculous that simply doing business is made a crime. That needs to be changed.